And we are live. Good
We are live.
afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our first and maybe last podcast. Welcome to Loving While Black, the conversation. I am here with my dear friend and colleague, Lisa Henry. Lisa, we've been talking about doing this forever,
Forever.
right?
Forever, ever. Yes.
Lisa and I have
Oh
known each other
gosh.
for about 1,000,000 years, and
At least.
at least. And we've known each other through music. Lisa's a world-renowned musician, singer, artist, music educator. She tours the globe. She's sung for all kinds of people, heads of state and royalty and whatnot. And she is a queen among queens.
Oh, you
And
sweetie.
and I've had the fortune of getting to share a stage with her once or twice, and as a bass player, and she's just always mesmerized audiences. And we've developed this friendship over the years that's extended beyond music. Once I moved to California, and we kind of got back together and started talking with each other, and then we've had these deep conversations with each other about life and family and kids and society and social issues and
Yes.
politics, and you name it. We've covered the waterfront. And there have been many times we both said, we should have recorded that.
Yes. Yes.
And this is the result of those conversations.
I love it. Thank you. You are too kind. Thank you very much. And of course, James is just awesome. Everything that has to do with, speaking and technology and teaching and making you, push your life further than where you thought it could be. That would be this gentleman right here. So aside from being an incredible musician, artist, he's smart. He's just really smart.
I'll put a little extra something in your bonus this week.
Like, thank you.
So we decided we wanted to focus on this topic of loving while black, and there's a website, lovingwhileblack.org, and we decided we'd have the conversation. Lisa has had a Facebook group and an ongoing ministry or mission or something for years called the Ugly Conversation. If you're her
Yes.
friend on Facebook, you've probably seen that. I know I've shared some things from that page many times. What's the Ugly Conversation about?
Ooh, the ugly conversation. Those are the conversations about race that, we don't want to talk about, but it's past time to talk about them. And the group is the group is very diverse. You have Black participants, white participants, we've got Hispanic participants, but it's really just putting it out there. And I think, um, as with that group and with this conversation that we're having right now, it's
Mhm.
all about, okay, let's just pause and let's just be real for a second,
Right.
because I know you and I were talking about many of the fantasies that accompany relationships in general.
Mhm.
And I think now we're at a time where everything is kind of breaking down, and it's forcing us all to say, okay, what's real and what's the truth?
Right.
So that's what the other conversation is about, and that's what this is about today. So it's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a dear person, another dear person in my life is joining us. Let her get in here because I want to hear her say, Angela, what a dear person you are. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Hi, Angela. I think she needs to unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm out and about. I'm almost home, but I didn't want to miss a minute of it. So thank you for hosting the conversation this afternoon.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here. Angela's another one of those special people. We go back and yeah, just a beautiful human being living the life. And yeah, so we look to hear from you as we go along. I want to take this moment at the very beginning to talk about our sponsor.
Oh, who's our sponsor?
Loving While Black, the conversation is brought to you by the thousands of years of trials and triumphs of our ancestors, the genetic memory of queens, kings, and enslaved peoples, the 404 years of the American experiment with Black people, 256 years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow and segregation, over 100 combined years between us of a lived experience of living, loving, marrying, raising a child, divorcing, and dating while Black in America. This is also brought to you by the freedom fighters, the revolutionaries, the strugglers and overcomers, and people who just want the world to be better. We are ministers and musicians, storytellers and activists. We are Black people who love. That's our.
Ooh, what a corporation.
You like that?
I like that.
So I want to throw this up on screen here real quick. This is our disclaimer for this group. So before, if you're watching it live, if you're here with us in the Zoom, if you're watching it live on Facebook, we just want to issue a disclaimer here. We are not licensed social workers, family therapists, psychologists, doctors, lawyers, financial planners, or anyone you should take advice from. Lisa, are you any of those things?
Nope. Just a
Okay.
teacher and a singer.
Okay. None of this is advice. We are not attempting to diagnose or treat any kind of condition, physical, mental, relationship, etc. You make your own decisions about your life and you reap the rewards or consequences thereof. This is just a bold, frank, vulnerable conversation that you get to witness between two people who care about this topic. Pay attention, though. We might say something good. And finally, love who you want.
Yeah,
Who you
there you
want.
go.
So
I love that.
we're talking about race here, like Black love matters, loving while Black people, right? That's what we're talking about. So I
Yes.
thought I would throw this out in our very first show, since we're talking about all this Blackness. What is race as we see it, as we define it? Because that's going to be a critical point as we go along. So Lisa, what is race to you?
Well, race, it's a construct and always has been here in the United States. But for social purposes, because we are here in good old America, you got Black folk, you got white folk, you got Hispanic folk. So just to whittle that on down,
And Asian folk.
and Asian folk, I mean, you
Right.
have everybody
So,
here.
yeah,
You got it. You got everybody here.
right.
But I think that for our purposes and for this conversation, there are some real challenges going on in the Black community in an area where it seemed like we have never had challenges, for example, keeping families together. That as a matter of fact, we used to be the envy. We were the community where our families were solid no matter what.
Right.
And so something has shifted. So I think, for our purposes here, yeah, we have to focus on, okay, what's going on with Black folk
Right.
in American society that has shifted, that has changed.
Right. And I agree with you on that. And just to add my perspective, race for me is a big fat lie.
Well, oh yeah, that's right.
And this is part of the show is to educate and enlighten and inform and maybe entertain. But social scientists, as Lisa talked about, have long understood that race is a social category. It's a social construct. It's made up. Because when they did, and you can go Google this, when they did the Human Genome Project back in early 2000, right? They went around the world, took samples of DNA from all the people on the planet. What they discovered is that 99.9% of all human DNA is identical.
How about that?
It's
Hi,
identical,
cousin.
right? And so there's not enough genetic material, genetic differentiation between people to account for separate races or even ethnic groups, right? All of that is a social construct, is a myth that has been created to prop up things like, slavery and segregation and exploitation and economic exploitation, etc. But, when you peel it all back, human, we're all just human. So what we're really fighting against, what I think is a big underpinning of all of this, is rampant structural systemic ignorance.
Ooh, systemic ignorance. I like that. You're right.
Right.
Yes.
Sister Angela, what do you think about anything we've talked about so far? And feel free to jump in, ask a question, or share a comment at any point.
You all are spot on, and I really love that you start with the construct of race. I think so many people either just miss the mark or just don't have a full understanding of it.
Mhm.
And sometimes maybe it may be just, sometimes maybe too emotional or painful for people to really deal with it.
Right.
But no,
Right.
I appreciate opening with that, and again, just listening in, and I'll be chiming in here and then. Thank you.
Yeah. My racial background is hella confused. I grew up with two parents, an African American mother and a Native American father, right? And so I look at me, I look at the hair, I look at them, I go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm half of one and half of the other. So for years, I was always arguing for, I'm biracial, and until I understood stuff about race and how that was just a construct. And I'm like, I'm human that identifies as these things. Right. And then about a year ago, I found out that both me and my sister were adopted. My mother was white. And I'm actually 22% Scottish. So all that Indian stuff is just, yeah, right. we haven't talked in a minute, Angela. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, now who am I? I'm 60% European and 40% African. So I'm like, do I need to rethink my positions on anything? Like, do all lives matter? Or like, and I still go to the rallies? So, but if you buy into the construct of race, I could be hella confused right now, but I'm not, because I am still human. That's what I identify as. And I'm going to stick with that. So, but yeah, I think it's important to talk about as a foundation for this. So, culture is a thing.
Right.
You ever
Definitely.
been to a black church? Culture is a thing. You ever been to the cookout? Culture is a
Yes.
thing, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so culture is a thing that we as groups of people have created throughout centuries, throughout millennia, right? And we have rituals in our cultures. We have food and dress and music and stories in our cultures. There are things that are important to us that we identify with in culture. And so when I think a lot of people talk about race, what I think they're really talking about is the culture they identify with.
Yes,
And so
absolutely.
if I'm dating or marrying outside of my culture, how are we
Right.
going to fit culturally? How will my
Mhm.
culture accept this person who is different from that culture? How will I be accepted in their culture if I'm radically different from theirs? That's my take on it. Lisa, what do you say
No,
about the culture
I
thing?
I think that you're spot on, and I also as you were talking, I was kind of chuckling to myself because, you've taken the time, and I know through our various conversations, we do the deep dive and
Mhm.
we go down the rabbit holes. And as you're talking, I'm sitting here wondering how many people who may be listening are just like, what? Huh? Because we don't take the time generally to ask those questions and to ask, okay, so, all right, what, I mean, okay, yes, I'm human, but I'm human having a black cultural experience as opposed to a white cultural experience.
Right.
And which is definitely possible to have even if you have brown skin.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, we don't ask those questions enough. And I think it's really indicative of just this soundbite culture that we live in general, when people are asking questions that involve too much reflection, we get mad because it takes too long and it's too hard and we don't like doing hard things.
Don't make me think,
So
damn it.
yeah, don't make me think. Make me
I
think
work hard.
for
I don't need to be thinking on the weekends.
right. But however, I think what's so great about what you just said is it really lays the foundation for when we talk about relationships. Because as you and I have discussed, we don't even discuss that enough before we get into them. We don't ask various questions. We don't ask things like, okay, the person that I would like to be partnered with, um, in a 24-hour day, what do I want to feel when I'm around that person?
Right.
How do I want that person to grow me?
Right.
How can I contribute to? We don't ask those questions. It's just, oh yeah, make him tall, dark, and whatever, and give her a big booty and whatever,
Mhm.
and and
Right.
we're just off into fantasy land, and we wonder why our relationships don't work out. And to be fair, I think that's across the board.
Hmm.
Period. I mean, I think, talking white or black, but
Yeah.
I think right now, particularly in black relationships, it's getting to the point where we're just at each other's throat.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got to really talk about that, because it's like, okay, we can be, perturbed with one another, but it's getting to the point where it's public now. You have um all of these social reels on where
Hmm.
black men are talking about how, I don't date black women anymore, and black women are saying, well, yeah, I divested a long time ago, I don't date black men anymore. And we're fighting out in public. And getting back to that cultural reference that you made earlier, there was a time where we kept family business in the family, but now we're just mad. We're just
Right.
mad, and we're telling everybody.
Right. For
So we
for
have to investigate that.
exactly, exactly. Let me play a short little clip here for you. Check this out. This is what you're talking about.
State right now where it is up for us. Okay, if you want a man that is maybe a high earner, or a man that is, I don't know, a CEO, etc., your pickings are very slim. Okay, so a lot of black women, we don't necessarily date out because we want to like white men or anything like that. It's sort of like out of necessity. So when I'm listening to this conversation, I hear it, I understand it, I live it, of course, but I also kind of feel like we have to present black women with another option, because there's the community aspect, like living as a black person, and then it's taking care of yourself as a woman. What are you going to choose first? Are you going to sit back and let the stories of how white people do this and this and this and that keep you single, or are you going to get out there?
Wow.
Right. What
Wow.
I'm trying to say is, like, to some degree, black men aren't even an option, or like we need another option. Like, if this is all we got, I need something else, because I just don't know about black men. Sister Angela, what did you hear the sister say? What was your take?
Yeah, these are conversations that women have around. It's almost like some women feel that they have to make a choice between being a woman and being black, and it's both. And how do we reconcile that?
Right. Right. I mean, what's your experience with this, to the extent that you want to share? I mean, do you view black men as a viable option for you, or are you open to dating whoever you feel like you have a good fit with?
Right. Yeah. Again, extensive conversations. I have a very close friend that's married outside of black culture.
Mhm.
Her husband is German, and for me, and she's always encouraged me. Well, go out and find and make yourself available. And no, I'm not going to pursue. I'm not going to pursue any man in that way. I mean, I'll
Right.
give choosing signals and things of that nature, but I believe in a more traditional approach, and for that reason. But I
Mhm.
think it goes back to the experience I want to have in my life daily, and I just don't see that with anyone other than a black man. I have a black son, as you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so I factor him into those decisions. Now, I don't date for my son. Let me be clear. I date for me.
Right. 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 Keep it real.
And having the experience of it all, it is a factor in, how I choose to date and who I choose to engage in my life.
Mhm.
I've witnessed situations with her and the husband, and I cringe, because there's just no cultural relationship there, and that's very near and dear to me.
Yeah.
So no, I would not. It's my choice, my preference, and I don't
Mhm.
feel like I'm making excuses for it. But no, I do believe that there are black men out and available. It's just a matter of timing. I think a lot of times we have to think a bit larger and trust the timing and order of our lives. I don't feel like relationship is something that I have to make or create. When those people are around me and I'm in the
Mhm.
right place, it all comes together. And I have no regrets for any of the relationships that I've had.
Yeah.
They've all taught me something. So I just think
Right.
it's more of an individual or personal development thing. And then, wherever you are. I mean, for instance, today, I read somewhere that rose oil and rose spray, attract people. I'm
Mhm.
out and about making my grocery run for the weekend, and this little 35-year-old boy thought it was cute. You know what? Made my day. And I'm
Go ahead
52.
on.
You know,
Tell me
Yes.
more.
I'm just
Tell me more.
sweet. That's the attention I've gotten in a while. But no, it was really, I mean, he was very kind, he was very mature. It was just a nice interaction.
Mhm.
And those are the moments that I feel we should more live for and gravitate to. On the flip side, I had a conversation with a gentleman my age just yesterday.
Mhm.
And it was just, I felt like he wanted to be in conflict.
Right.
And I'm like, no, I will either be in peace with you or I will walk away and free you and allow you to go find whatever it is you're looking for.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not really up for the conflict. And I find that, unfortunately, I've found some situations where some people just want to be in conflict. And I'm not interested.
Yeah. Are you looking for a partner or a debate partner?
Right.
I'm looking for a debate partner.
If that attention is not coming in a certain way, it's almost like, well, what's wrong with you? No, I choose to be at peace, and we
Right.
can have healthy debate, and there's going to be conflict in any relationship, but how you address it, deal with it, is where the relationship piece really comes in. So,
Yeah.
it's definitely have to talk about these things.
Yeah, I love everything you said there, especially like the part about you early on. You were talking about the kind of experience that you want to have in your life. And Lisa and I were talking about this the other day. I think early on in my life, I wanted a certain kind of experience of relationship. And, at one point, especially when I was younger, I was in college, et cetera. Yeah, I went out with Caucasian women and I didn't have a problem with that. And I remember some sisters challenging me. Like one got in my face, I have seen you out with a white woman. What is wrong with black women? I'm like, oh, well, this right here is like, I don't need this kind of drama in my life. So this right here is what's wrong. Not with all black women, but with you. So little did I know I was actually 60% white, and maybe that was the European part of me that was expressing itself. But what I told myself, what I found myself thinking consciously was that I may date European American women, white women, but when I marry, I will marry a sister. I will marry a black woman because that's the experience of family that I want to have, even though my parents did the interracial thing between black and Native American. But I said, I wanted, culturally speaking, that was what I knew. And I wanted to have that experience, and I didn't want to have to try to explain everything to my lightly melanated partner or whatever. Now, after having done that, 25 years with a person and having a son, et cetera, and we're not divorced, but we are divorced, but we still get along, and he's been sort of the overlapping part of the Venn diagram of our relationship, our son. I'm open to dating whoever brings peace into my life. And she could be blue, green, polka dots. I don't really care, as long as she brings peace and what feels like sanctuary into my life. And if I can add something like that to her. So it's less of a thing for me now than it used to be. Anybody want to talk about that or have any comments, reflections?
No, you're absolutely right, James. I mean, wow, there's a lot to unpack there. And I think I'd like to go back to the clip, because what I saw there, and I think at this age now, I really zero in on shallowness.
Mm,
And I was immediately at the very beginning, there was a number figure put to the man. And
high net worth.
yeah, right, high net worth. And let me tell you why that bothers me. Now, I understand, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm just so naive in this world. I know that we are living in a world where, yes, you need to have money to live, retirement. I get all of that. Where I get concerned is when right out the gate we start equating people with their dollar figure. I never hear anybody talking about a high net worth in personal responsibility, a high net worth in accountability. I
Preach.
never hear that. Okay. But
Right.
as soon as we're talking about, and let's be very, very clear, because a high net worth man, okay, so let's say you got one, and I'm remembering just a couple days ago, because we now have the NFL draft is wrapping up here in Kansas City. So, oh goodness. So online, I have seen all of the
Professional
little,
slave auction.
oh, you well, yeah. But let me tell you what has been even more. And as I knew that we were going to have this conversation, I've seen some, quite a few women. Oh, well, ladies, this is the weekend to be out. Better go out and get you a foot. I mean, it's
Ooh.
just like, oh yeah, and it's been. I've seen at least 7 posts like that, and of course, it's presented as a tongue in cheek. Okay, ladies, we got football players, and I get it, but I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the conversation that we're having today, and I'm thinking, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You don't care about the character of these men. You don't. No one's saying, well, okay, yeah, let's go find somebody who is, a stable human being. At
Right.
that point in our world that we live in, I'm really concerned about that. But it goes to that issue of shallowness. And I wonder if well, I know we don't talk about it enough. And I'm trying to look at and pinpoint all of the areas where, whether it's through the media, through, sort of the love and hip hop sort of, culture that we live in, through, reality TV. What is it that is the lead? I mean, that's the lead in.
Right. Right.
And that bothers me, because as Angela said, I have a Black son. He's
Mhm.
about to graduate with a master's degree. Okay, you have a Black son,
Right.
and we don't want a woman to look at him just for that. We know these human beings as wonderful folks. We have raised them since birth,
Mhm.
so it's offensive to me.
Mhm.
Now, sure, we certainly don't want a man who's gonna sit on the couch and play video games all day. I get that.
Right. Right.
But when you start out the conversation with high net worth,
Right.
and that's it.
Right.
I mean, you don't say anything else.
That I think that being generous, I think that might be a woman's way of saying, I need to ensure that my home is provided for and that any potential children are well taken care of. And so that's the mother instinct that is coming out. That's the generous side of it. The other
That's
side
very
of it
that's very
is,
generous.
is you just trying to catch you. I ain't saying she a gold digger.
Right.
She
Well,
ain't messing with no pro.
well, and James and Angela, please jump in here. How many stories have we heard of on the news or seen in storylines of women who are desperately unhappy, but they live this very charmed life and they have all the money that they need, but they go home to despair and an environment that we wouldn't tolerate under any circumstance.
Right.
And, how much of ourselves are we willing to pawn?
Mhm.
Okay, in order to say, yes, I have a man of high net worth, which, if it's a genuine relationship and you two have things in common, he's a decent person, and it was meant to be, I applaud that. I'm looking at this sort of shallow, well, this is what I need. And, and if a Black man doesn't have this, well, then I have to go to a white man,
See?
because that's kind of what the conversation is.
Yeah, and I view this as the question that comes to mind is, where are you asking that question from? If you're looking for a man of high net worth, you're either asking it from a point of lack, like my cup is empty and I need somebody who's going to fill that, or you are a high net worth person yourself and you're looking for someone equally yoked with you and y'all can build some stuff together.
Yes.
So I just need to know who you are. Are you empty or are you full and you're looking for a co-builder? Because if I'm full too, then let's you and I engage with each other at the level of, what do you want to build? Well, what do
Right.
okay, well, let's us go build that rather than what's in your bank account, what kind of car do you drive, and see. Let me share, because we've had this conversation. I think we were talking about doing a full show on this.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like we need to presence this right now. Can you all see that?
Yep.
You remember Abraham Maslow, the psychologist who did the thing of the hierarchy of needs, right?
Yes.
That question, is he a high net worth person? If your cup is empty, you're asking it from down at the bottom physiological needs. I need shelter, food, clothing. I need the necessities of keeping myself alive. I need to make sure that's
Yes.
in place. So, when you look at like, who am I attracting and who am I interested in? Okay, where are you on this hierarchy? If you're down at the bottom worrying about physiological needs and safety, like having a steady job and benefits and, resources and all of that, you're probably looking for a high net worth person who can fill your deficit.
Yes.
But if you have all those needs met, I don't need a man with a high net worth. I don't need a woman with a high net worth. I got that. I can take care of that for myself. What am I looking for? I'm looking for this right here, love and belonging. So let's talk about intimacy and family and sense of connection and friendship. Can you meet me there? Or if I have enough of this in my life through family and friends, maybe I need to feel like a self-esteem. I boosted something. Or if I feel good about all that, I'm up here talking about be all I can be. I want
Right.
someone I can build and grow with, who's going to help elevate my consciousness, right? So
How about that?
if I got all the bottom rung stuff met, then I'm looking for the one who's hanging out on the top floor. And if you're only interested in my net worth, I am automatically disqualifying you because you're not speaking at the level I am looking for. Am I making sense?
Oh, and the church said amen.
Angela, you coming on here twice?
Yes, I made it home.
Oh, congratulations. Yay. Glad you made it.
Yay.
So,
Yeah.
I think when we're looking, sometimes we look at, well, are they the right sign? Or, are you a Gemini? Are you a Leo, a Capricorn? That kind of thing. But like, are you light skinned? Are you dark skinned? Like, what are you? Good to see you. It's so good to see you. But I'm starting to view relationships through this lens. It's like, where are you on the hierarchy, and where am I, and what am I looking for? And and no shade or judgment about anybody who is struggling with anything where they are in their life right now. A lot of people down at the bottom levels trying to figure out how to make life work. Bless you. Try to help when I can. But, if I'm talking about partnership with somebody, I at least want somebody who is where I am, or very close to it. Oh, let me pull you up a bit, or you pull me up a bit, and okay, now let's build from there. Angela, what do you think about this Maslow frame for relationships?
Yes, I refer to this, and I've shared this with so many friends. And until we really meet that basic level or that basic layer, it's so difficult to connect with others. We get to those physiological needs, and I think from Black women's perspective, a lot of those needs are being met because we're earning and we're doing the things, right?
Yeah.
But I also, a lot of times I'll explain that, self-esteem, my self-esteem is intact. I think very highly of myself. I think I'm attractive. I have things I can afford to do, this, that, and the third. But it's the security piece that we tend to attach to stuff and things, when it's not really about the stuff and things. It's about, are you consistent? Are you reliable? Are you present? And when those needs are not being met, we can't get to that next level of safety.
Right.
And unfortunately, there are situations where women who can meet their own physiological needs are viewed before we can even get to a more in-depth conversation. Oh, well, you have this and you have a car, you have that, you don't need. And that's not true. And until we really engage in conversation, I have to know that my words are going to land in a safe space. But when I met with that, it's really a turnoff. It really is. And unfortunately, we can't even get to a reasonable conversation because the perception is one thing. But the true need for safe personal security, health and property and all those things, yeah, they're being met, but then the love and belonging, it just, you can't get from one level to the next because it's perception. And like I said, I take a pretty traditional approach. I'm not about going out and, okay, you man, come here. I'm looking for, I'm available and I will respond. And so unfortunately, when men approach, they have a certain perception. And before we can even get to an in-depth conversation, there's really not much to talk about.
Yeah. See, one of the things I think shows up is there's this common perception that men need to be needed. We need to feel like we're needed, right? You need me to screw a light bulb in, or get the spider out the house, or open the pickle jar to stuff. Like we have to have a purpose, and if we don't feel like we have a purpose, why are we there? So like we need to be needed. And so if in the traditional male role was to be the provider, right? He was the one who was responsible for all this stuff down here, right? And she was the love and belonging, the home and the household and the kids and the nurture and all of that. Well, if a woman has all of that bottom level stuff handled and you don't need a man to do that, what is our role? Is the role here with love and belonging? For a lot of guys, that's just like, oh, all I got to do is show up and sex you. And the woman's like, no, not exactly. Because I'm talking about emotional intimacy. Can you have that connection with me? And a lot of guys aren't taught that. And so again, we're like, well, that's the role you want me to fill, but I don't know how to do that. But I can do this one thing over. It's like we're a one-trick pony. I can do this one thing really well. Oh, you need more than that? Damn, I need a class. A podcast, a book, a tape, something.
Yeah, well, and James, I think that you just hit it on the head. I think that for men, that's the new lesson plan. Okay. Yeah, you know how to show up and unscrew the pickle jar.
Right.
But yeah, particularly for Black men, and I think that again, we've had these conversations before. Black men are not allowed to do so much. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to show your weaknesses. You're not allowed to show that the world is just ganging up on you every nanosecond. And so you don't have places to just release and be who you are. And so when you then come home to a woman who says, I need you to do the belonging and the loving, you're like, okay, look, I just got done with 8 hours of being attacked. Really?
Right.
And so no one, you're right. No one has shown you that. And I think that for women, and Angela can definitely jump in here, we kind of come with a built-in network of, hey sis, you okay? You feeling? I mean, we kind of live our lives checking on each other, even if we don't know each other. If we see somebody looking sad or whatnot, it's not uncommon for women to reach out and make sure that the other woman is okay. For Black men, or just men in general, but definitely Black men, how you doing? Oh, I'm cool, and you're falling apart. And meanwhile, we got this hierarchy of needs, and you got a woman who's got the bottom taken care of, you trying to meet the top, and you have no idea what to do. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And we had to talk about it. Yeah.
I want to play this short clip for you all.
Get from women here, but when it came in. Michelangelo.
Okay, nice to meet you.
How are you?
I've been out with Black women or approached Black women, and before they even knew me, they said,
Who are you? Michelangelo.
Okay, nice to meet you.
How are you?
I've been out with Black women or approached Black women, and before they even knew me, they said, how many kids you got? How many baby mamas you got? Dating outside my race, I haven't had no issues like that at all.
Okay, and you are?
I'm Coro.
Coro.
I've been practicing abstinence for 3 years, 3 years with no sex. I'm looking for someone that can respect my views on this, someone that can love me for me.
And you are?
Bo.
Bo.
Yeah, I don't date Black women now because of past experiences. They like to place that strong personality on you, and sometimes you just kind of Just like, stay in a woman's place.
So do you have any idea why you're here?
We share some of the same
Opinions.
About?
Why are black women so angry?
Was your mother angry?
To a certain degree, yes. She had that anger inside of her, but she made sure that she didn't pass it on to me. I see how she handles that, and she gives off that vibe that I get from women here, but when it came to me and how she approached me and taught me about women, she said, don't deal with this.
That's interesting, because as a black mother,
Yeah.
my work was to help my son understand it so that he would know how to stand in it with a black woman. Why are you here?
My situation is a little bit different because I traveled a lot when I was a kid, very talented, very gifted musically. So because of that, when I came back to my neighborhood, when I was dealing with certain black women, you're different. You talk funny, you dress funny, the music you listen to is funny. I don't like being because I had flip-flops on or I had a turtleneck, I'm gay. The problem I'm having is just because you're my culture and you're black, you don't get a pass. All the women in my family, I got a side of cousins that made me feel weird about that.
How can anybody make you feel?
So that's what some brothers are saying about their experience with some black women. And when we talk, we're not talking all black men, all black women, all black relationships, right? Everybody's a little different, but there's some common themes. Like ABW, the angry black woman, is a common theme, right?
Yes.
Black women that got angry. I have probably made some black women angry. I own that myself. But do I think all black women are angry? No. Do I think all black women have some stuff to be angry about? Yeah. You lived in this country for a minute. And if you've been paying attention, yeah, you got some stuff to be angry about. But then I think the issue is, one of their issues is like, do you like view black men as a lightning rod for your anger?
You know what? I'm going to say, again, from our conversation the other night, we need to look at causation. I don't think any of us just comes here to be angry just because. And it's often painted that way.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I don't think it's right for anyone. I think when you're dealing with another human being, it's just always a good policy to take a breath, make sure that you are not making anybody feel bad, and be respectful, all of those things. But when I hear the angry black woman trope, and I hear it all the time and all the time and all the time, and no one asks the question, and I'm waiting for this to happen. I'm waiting for someone to say, hey, fellas, why don't we get all the angry black women together and ask, why are you angry? Why don't we talk to them? Why don't we talk to them together in a space so that maybe we can understand? Because again, as much as we share things culturally, I still think that we can be tone deaf, black women and black men, with certain issues.
Right.
And so the stress that you are feeling navigating this society is different from the stress that I am feeling navigating this society as a woman. So as a man, you are always a part of the patriarchy, for better, for worse. Okay.
Right.
You're always a part of that. So you have a certain advantage, even in your day-to-day knockdown from the society.
Right.
You still have an advantage that I don't have. So long after you're in bed, sleep from the day's work, right, I'm preparing the meals for tomorrow. I'm preparing, the lunches, And if I get 8 hours of sleep, it's amazing. So you do that over years and years and years, and people not acknowledging
right,
what we have to carry.
right.
That's not to say that you should not be acknowledged for what you have to carry as a black man.
Right.
But since we're talking about black men and black women, it's just the acknowledgement. But to come to a table and say, well, all the black women are just angry. Like we all woke up one day and said, let's just be angry, sis. Let's just be really mad at black men.
Is today the day? It's on my calendar. Today's
Yeah, it's on my
angry day.
calendar. We just gonna be
So,
mad.
would it be more truthful to say rather than angry, you're just tired?
I'd like to chime in here.
Please.
Absolutely.
Yeah, another little effective tool, I'm sure you all have probably seen it. James, again, you're my first coach ever introduced me to the whole concept, and forever grateful for that. But there's a feeling wheel that's out there in the psychological circles, and it's got all these other emotions that we describe, and then you get to the center of it, it gets to kind of the core emotion. And what I've discovered about myself, just a moment of vulnerability, a lot of my behaviors in relationship with men really tie back to my relationship with my father. And so I'm a bit of the black sheep of the family because I just don't tolerate a whole lot. At this stage of my life, it's like it's not just I don't want to, I can't afford to. Like health-wise, I cannot afford to. Okay, literally. And so it's what I've observed is that sometimes, in some cases, it's anger is an emotion I think we can all relate to. We've all been angry at some point. It's a natural, normal emotion. But what we don't get down to is the root cause of that anger. And generally it's disappointment, because I just don't display anger in that way, because I make a conscious effort not to go there. I try to work on solutions. I think I've missed out on those times to really express my anger fully. But I feel like people will label something as angry when they don't want to take responsibility for the disappointment they may have caused or the harm they may have caused. So for me, it's just all we can do is kind of self-examine. And as a woman, I can self-examine myself and say, okay, this is what I want to do. Again, frustration, angry, mad, all those things. And again, it's a core emotion. It's, the deeper you go, the deeper you get. And these are things that we all have to deal with. But I just, again, in my experience, it's just that people unfortunately don't, in this context, my father in that instance, or there's something that was causing me to be angry, I'm legitimately angry for a reason. Again, we don't just wake up one day being angry, but I find that it's when people don't want to take, these men in this scenario don't want to take responsibility for the harm they've caused. And I think a lot of it has to do with the patriarchy and some of the inflammatory word alert, entitlement to a woman's labor, to her care and to her concern. It's like, well, when is enough enough? And I feel like sometimes men, because of the same reasons, maybe it was, father wasn't in the home to model certain behaviors, the need just seems to be insatiable. Women can't feel that need. It's like, well, what's wrong with you? I have this need, and other needs are not being considered or met.
Yeah, there's this whole concept, and welcome, Sister Harriet, welcome. This whole thing about Black love and relationships, it's a multifaceted thing. It's not just one thing. It's not just slavery and segregation, blah blah blah. It's patriarchy, it's racism, it's history, it's how we've interacted with each other, direct experience with each other. It's an onion that has probably thousands of layers to it, right? And we peel back one and there's another thing. And we got to work through that. And then like, can't we just be together and be happy? It's like, yes. And we need to clean up this stuff over here. Sister Harriet, how are you today? Welcome to the conversation.
Hello. I'm thrilled. The Warriors won and I'm thrilled.
Yay, go Dubs. Woohoo. All right. I'm teaching a class with them this week, so
oh,
at least they'll be happy.
Yeah, they will be.
They'll be sad in class. Ain't listen because I'm sad. So yeah, we're having a really good discussion. I don't know if you were following on Facebook before, just about Black love and what's getting in the way, and what Black women feel about Black men and Black men feel about Black women, and how to unpack all of this stuff. And we were just getting to the point where it's multifaceted. It's not just our interactions, it's patriarchy and it's racism and segregation and history, and it's a bunch of things. And so let me bring this back to our original thing where we were talking about culture, right? There's a culture of Black people, there's a culture of other people. And so what does all of this history and pain and anger and misunderstanding, pause. There was a point I wanted to interject. Angela was talking about nonviolent communication. Study that, folks. Study it, because underneath what sounds like violence or angry communication is actually a need. Right?
Mhm.
You're angry, but what does the anger stem from? There's a need there, right? You're frustrated, fine, but what's the frustration? What's the need that is representing as anger, as frustration, as fear, as whatever? And so if we can just learn to be patient and good listeners and listen empathetically, right? Listen with our hearts, not just our ears and our wounds, maybe we can uncover what the real issue is. But that requires a lot of emotional intelligence, a lot of vulnerability, and a lot of willingness to go deep with somebody. Can you be in that space with me, as somebody said earlier? So having said that, go study nonviolent communication, everybody. Get to know yourself. So you take all this stuff between black people and blah blah blah. And by the way, we're kind of talking in a heteronormative way about black men and black women, and we realize that there are same gendered couples out there, black men, black women and black women, etc. And so love looks like lots of different things. So don't take this as, you know, we're excluding you, right? You have your own challenges, right? Navigating the world, you know, especially with families that may not be as accepting, right, of your LGBTQIA-ness. And so that adds another layer of complexity and difficulty in this. So, but if you take all of that, how does all of that stuff affect where people are? And I want to, this is from Black Demographics, and I want to share this because I think this is revealing. Marriage statistics by race. Can you see that on the screen? Y'all see that slide?
Yes.
Who do you think is the least married between blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics? Who do you think is the least married?
Black women.
Black women?
Mhm.
Black women? Okay. According to them, it's black people in general, like men and women, only 30%, 3% separated, 12% divorced, 6% widowed, 50% never married. Is any of this surprising to anyone?
Wow.
It's heartbreaking to me. That's what it is to me.
And this is from the U.S. Census Bureau. So this is not just, you know, somebody making up some stuff. This is U.S. Census Bureau from 2020. This is fairly recent, right? Who do you think is next in terms of least married? Black, white, Asian, Hispanic.
Hispanic.
Hispanic, yep. 43% married, 3% divorced, 9%, I'm sorry, 3% separated, 9% divorced, 3% widowed, 43% never married. Who do you think is next?
Asians.
Not quite. It's whites.
White people. Okay.
52% married, 1% separated, 12% divorced. It's interesting. The divorce numbers are fairly similar, as are the separated. The widowed, similar to black, 7%, 28% never married. And finally, Asians. 58% married, 31% never married, right? And the rest in the middle. So, you know, Asians are really doing this pretty well.
You're right.
Asians got this part down, right?
Yeah.
Looking at each other. Anyway, so what do you all take away from these statistics? The percentage of married people and unmarried between these four different culture groups.
I don't know. For me, my mind goes to capitalism and how economics works in this country and how it oppresses certain people and puts us in boxes and shapes our thinking around what we need to have and who we need to be ourselves and be married or whatever. It just seems like so much is just scripted by capitalism and how America shapes our perspective.
Well, I didn't share the slide deck with you beforehand, but you're spot on. So let's take a look at the numbers. So here's the poverty rate by race and Hispanic origin, 59 to 2019. Back in around the time when some of us were born in the 60s, blacks were running at about 40% poverty, Hispanics, over 20%, Asians about 20%, whites less than 10. And it's interesting to note how the poverty level for non-Hispanic whites has remained largely flat for 50 years, 60 years, right? Under 10%. We look at Asians, it was high and it's been on a steady decline to be on par with whites now as of 2019. Hispanics, that's fluctuated, but it's also come down a bit. Black has also come down a bit, but we're still at 18.8% versus 7.3 for those two groups. And who was number one in terms of marriage? Asian. Number two was white. Number three was Hispanic. And number four was black. So your point, Harriet, about capitalism, I think is a very valid one. Because as we were talking about earlier, Angela was talking about, and Lisa, a lot of black women tend to look at, well, is he a good provider? Is he a high net worth individual? This is something that came up in a short video we saw earlier. Well, if you're down at that lower level and you're looking for, looking to get your cup filled, you're not looking for a guy who's struggling too. Right? And which is a thing that I think may drive many women, many black women, to consider whites or Asians, because, well, just look at the numbers. There's a better chance of financial viability there than with, the brother down the street. Which leads to this question, and there was a Stanford professor who wrote a book about this: is marriage for white people?
Wow.
chime in. I went to a book signing with I believe he's a PhD. Well, I'll just say Mr. Banks. I'm not
Yeah.
sure Dr. Banks or Mr. Banks.
Yeah.
And so I had a few questions towards the end of the chat, and ultimately I discovered, in terms of some of the research and who was polled and that sort of thing, the barometer is generally, in most of these studies and in his book as well, for legal marriage. Did you go
Right.
down to the courthouse and get a legal marriage certificate?
Right.
I think that some people marry or even sometimes conflate the legal marriage for the emotional connection. And I just feel like, capitalism has really done a number on us.
Yeah.
So many ways. Some people are foregoing, true connection, and we speak about the emotional intelligence and, security and all of that, and say, well, I'm married, but I'm married. And the two are not really congruent to one another. We also know about rates of reported infidelity. We know about all of the flip side of that. So for me personally, just to say I'm legally married, it just falls short.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. So let's flip this around 180 degrees. Is marriage for white people? Here's the opposite. Is traditional marriage for black people?
Mic drop.
Usually, and I
Maybe
think
we
the
need to
answer
be
could
doing
be yes.
it differently. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the answer could be yes, but, I think the answer could be yes. And I do not believe that we invest enough in financial literacy to really understand those benefits and how that can then contribute to a more peaceful, more abundant life. I mean, again, money is not the end all be all, but it sure does allow you access to things that could help you out.
It helps with level 1 and 2 of Maslow.
Exactly. If you can't get to 1 and 2, how are you going to get to 3, 4, or 5, right?
Right.
Okay, an unpopular opinion here. Okay.
Yes. Hear it.
As you were talking about, James, doing it differently. Now, I went to Ghana in 2021, okay? And there are many parts of Africa that they do marriage a little differently. You may have a man who has multiple wives. Now, we scoff at that over here. But as we look at, again, the financial viability of the whole thing,
Mhm.
it begins to make sense. And so I remember I saw a clip of Sister Shahrazad Ali. I don't know if
Mhm.
you remember her. She is the woman who wrote the Black Woman's Guide to the Black Man, and she also did one, the Black Man's Guide to the Black Woman. And so at the time that those books came out, oh, she was tarred and feathered by a lot of people in our community. I know. And but as we're talking about capitalism, as Miss Harriet brought up, so spot on. The question for me becomes, you know, we've had to assimilate in many things here
Mhm.
in America, and we never ask the question why. Why do we do it this way? And is there another way to do it? Now, of course, legally, you can't have more than one wife here in America. Get that. But in terms of our relationships, because relationships really are a personal thing, um, do we, because of what we're facing, because we do have that added issue of the finances and not being literate in the American sense of finances, um, as I hear of people, and there is a polygamous movement going on amongst Black folks.
Right.
And it's sometimes met with a lot of laughing and well, I'm not going to be another woman to but it's deeper than that. And when you go over to Africa, you see the full scale of what that looks like.
Mhm.
And it's not just, first of all, as a man, you've got to be able to afford two wives. That's number one.
Right.
But in terms of who's watching the children, who's helping the children develop, that
Mhm.
question is answered. Do we all have enough to eat? That question is answered. Do we all have a home to live in? That question is answered.
Right.
So to your point, I think that now, I'm not, I don't really know how I feel about it. I'm gonna be very honest about it. Um, can't see myself doing that, but I don't know. Having been married, having a co-wife there, and me not having to do dishes on Tuesday, maybe that's a possibility. I don't know, but I think we need to at least have conversations about why this doesn't work for us,
Mhm.
because I don't even think we don't even bring up the conversation, you know?
Yeah.
A- And
The-
so that's why what we're doing, and I hope this catches on and gets bigger, because we need to sit down and talk about it, because we
Right.
don't.
Right. I think you have valid points there, that how we do things is basically because that's how we've been taught to do things. That's what has been modeled for us.
Mhm.
This is how you marry. This is how you do family. This is how you do religion. White Jesus, white God, both men, right? Patriarchy, white supremacy, all rolled into that. No offense if you're Christian, I'm just saying. Right? That's been the Black experience. And so, like, what did we used to do before we knew this experience? Right?
Mhm.
I
Yep.
think there's a lot of history that's missing, and I have a number of Muslim friends, and Islam, teaches that the man can have, I believe it's up to four wives, but he has to be able to provide for all four of them and treat them well and all of that. And so it's not like polyamory or polygamy is a foreign concept, right? It's been a central tenet in many civilizations across the world. And so maybe that's a thing we need to look at, like, what if we redefine relationships for ourselves and we did it in a way that worked for us? But I think the challenge with that is it takes a lot of personal development and evolution to be able to get there, because I know there's some people is like, oh, you sent a Mother's Day card to your ex? It's like, well, yeah, she's the mother of my child. Why wouldn't I do that? What?
Mhm.
But right? And so I think individually as people, irrespective of Black or white or whatever, we need to really understand and explore how we love. Like, what is love? Is it ownership? Is it possession? Or is it something much broader than that? So yeah, we're not going to unpack all of this, but this feels like a good stopping point for today. I do
I got a
want,
question for
yeah,
you,
please,
James.
please,
That's a
Harriet.
quick question because
Yes.
because you're showing the data about the marriages,
Mhm.
and a thought came to me as you were speaking. But what about the happiness? Has anyone measured the happiness? Are people happy if they've never married, or whatever with their
Thank
lives?
you.
Or
Yeah.
perhaps
Yes.
people are happy. Maybe this is the choice they want in their lives.
Is it happiness, or is it just I'm happy that I don't have to go through what either I've been through before with marriage or what I hear my married friends talk about? Is
Well,
it
those would be the
happiness, or is
questions.
it avoidance
Both.
of
Yeah,
pain,
it could be both. Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
And this is let's preface this for a couple of minutes, because Lisa's texted me last night at like 1 a.m. for her, 11 something for me. I'm like, we're doing a show tomorrow, right? but it was good. And so the overall topic was, are we, because you played a video, right, where a guy was saying how a lot of Black women are immature because they don't understand just what is involved in a marriage. And it's not just fairy tale. They come to it with this Disneyland princess, kind of idea that, oh, it's going to be wonderful and blah, blah, blah. And my dreams come. And it's like, no, there's a lot of hard work involved. You throw a kid in there, that's like
Daily, yeah,
right?
daily work.
And so and not just Black women, but Black men and women in general, whether you're same gendered or not, are we a bit delusional about the responsibilities of being in a committed relationship for decades or forever?
Could be if we didn't have a good model, and we're looking at Hollywood. What are we looking at?
Right? I mean, I think we live in this, sort of throw it away, use it once and toss it kind of society, this recycle society. And so, the analogy I used was gum. Gum is great for about 30 seconds. Delicious.
So true.
But after that, it's just work. And you're like, I'm working too hard. And you toss it out and you get another piece. And I think that's how a lot of people are in relationships these days. When it's sweet, it's great. But when it feels like work, you toss it out and you get another piece. And so this is where I think if you're going to do marriage, like dating is one thing. If you're going to do marriage that involves the possibility of children, there should be classes. You should have to take tests. You should need like 4 or 5 people who will vouch for you. Like, it should be a whole like year or 2-year long process, right? Vetting of everything, health, finances, there, just to ensure that you are psychology classes, you are ready, willing, and able to do this thing. The spiritual teacher named Osho said, divorce should be the easiest thing in the world. You realize it's not working, boom, you're done. That's it. But marriage, you should have to jump through all kind of hoops to do that. Because and I'm a minister too, and I tell people, that this is not to be undertaken lightly. Do not go into this lightly, because it's not a light thing. And so I think there are a lot of people who are just delusional about what's involved, and what they see, right? Hollywood, Harriet, is that ain't real life.
Exactly.
Well, and what
yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Harriet.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, and you have to live a decade or two, I think, before you understand all of that is made up in Hollywood, and real life is quite different. And then you begin to understand what you really want for your life.
Right.
But I saw some survey about people on Facebook or somewhere on social media about the proper age, the best age for marriage, and I think it was in your 30s. And I think that's true. And we need to be in our mid-30s perhaps before we get married.
I'm thinking it should be closer to 50.
Yeah.
40, 42, somewhere in there. You need to see some things first.
Right. Well, and I was sharing with James at 1 a.m. I said, it's my best analogy is buying a house. So the marketing of buying a house is just intoxicating. You see yourself in this beautiful estate. It's got rolling green lawns and a beautiful fence, and nobody talks about the upkeep in the marketing.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that. And there was a movie years ago, y'all probably remember it, called The Money Pit. And okay, The Money Pit, I think, is a prime example of what happens when we're talking about relationships. Yeah, we get into it. It's beautiful. The lawn was all mowed when you got in there, and all of that, and it's beautiful. And oh my God, I gotta upkeep this thing. Well, but we're not even taught that in school. We're not taught anything about buying a house, about getting into a relationship. So here we are with this Disney marketing campaign, which they did a great job. They did an amazing job, because for us to be this delusional, I think that really, I think that we look on a day-to-day basis. I meet very smart people, and yet they are just as delusional about this thing as I was when I got married, as I'm sure James was. About so many of us were delusional about that. So yeah, nobody talks about the upkeep. Nobody.
Yeah.
Yep. Because what happens when water heater breaks? You need a new roof. Who's gonna cut the grass?
And you got no money.
Yeah.
Right? I thought it cut itself. No,
No,
got
right?
ChatGPT, but we don't have auto lawn maintenance. So yeah, you got to figure.
Yeah.
stuff
And
out.
the banks want their money. They're not playing around.
All the
They
time.
are not playing around.
Very much.
But
'cause
you
they'll
know
take
what?
your dream.
Yes, they will. And you know what, James, what this goes back to, and I think I heard you and Angela say it a couple of times today, emotional intelligence.
Right.
See, if you don't have that foundation, okay, if you don't ask the questions, if you don't do the deep dives, like we have done many, many, many days, what does that look like for your future relationships overall? You got to ask these questions. But if you don't know, you have to ask these questions. If you don't know about the upkeep, is there any wonder why we're not getting married at the rate that other people are, or that we're divorcing at a rate that just seems crazy?
Right. Yeah, it's a multifaceted thing, and we plan on having a number of these conversations where we will talk in greater depth about those things, like deal breakers, why have them, and are you being too picky? We'll talk about the intersection of faith and love, exploring faith and spirituality. We'll talk about mental health in Black relationships. We'll talk about healing from infidelity, love in the digital age, navigating interracial, intercultural relationships, the role of trauma in Black love, and we'll also explore the myth of the strong Black woman. So those are just some of the fun topics that we'll be exploring on Loving While Black, the conversation. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you so much, Harry, for joining us. Tell your friends about this. We'll post this. We'll have a YouTube channel, Loving While Black. You can also visit us at lovingwhileblack.org. And we hope to continue the conversation. Not that we necessarily have answers, but we have good questions and hopefully great conversation. So love you all. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you, everybody. Lisa, you're the best. And we'll all see you again. Take care.
All right. Nice to meet you,
Thank you.
ladies. Have
All
a
right.
great night. Bye-bye.
You too now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.